So today we are going to talk about evolution and development of temple architecture in Indian subcontinent, how we can able to understand the development of temple architecture in Indian subcontinent. So this is very important because see, if you will look into for your syllabus and the content given there within, you can able to see that you have been given the examples of Nagar and Dravid, both the styles of temple architecture which evolved in Indian subcontinent. So I thought of, first of all, in order to understand the nature of architecture that is involved in the making of two of the samples taken up in your syllabus, one from Nagar, that is Khajuraho group of temple, and one from Dravid. So in order to understand them, it is very much important that we should have a background to the evolution and development of temple architecture in Indian subcontinent. So in today's class, we are going to talk about evolution and development of temple architecture in Indian subcontinent. And then we will, with the help of specific case examples, will look into for the architectural features that we come across uh, uh, in Nagar style at the site of Khajuraho, and one from Dravidian style. So which temple is from Dravidian style? Can someone let me know? Is given in your syllabus?
Brihadeshwara temple.
Brihadeshwara temple, right? So in the Dravidian style of temple architecture, we will take up the example of Brihadeshwara temple. Now, when we look at these temples in the contemporary time, because they are existing today with us in situ conditions, so you can see how magnificent these temple complexes are. So, how the emergence and development of temple architecture we witness in Indian subcontinent is a very important issue that we need to understand, so that we can able to contextualize these sites wherein we are coming across uh, uh, temple remains. So let me begin describing you the origin and development of temple architecture first, and then we will come down to the examples specifically given in your syllabus related to uh, both Nagar and Dravid style. So let me share my screen with all of you first, and then we start discussing. All of you can see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Can you see my screen now? Right? Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir. It is visible.
So see, when we start discussing the evolution of temple architecture in Indian subcontinent, it is very important for all of us to know that we do not come across temple for the first time in very evolved form like the way we are getting it at Khajuraho, or the way we getting it at Brihadeshwara. But it has a long drawn background, that is something uh, which has been worked out in archaeological excavations and um, early remains, structural remains that we are coming across in different regions of Indian subcontinent. So when we start talking about since when we have the existence of earliest temple we are coming across in Indian subcontinent. So for that, in the historical periods, the earliest remain is evident to us in the form of excavated uh, sites from where some evidences of temple architecture. Of course, those structures are not complete in entirety, but its impression or basements or the pattern of making temples are evident at various sites which has been found in archaeological excavation. So the one of the uh, excavation wherein the superstructure uh, is not surviving, but we do come across the plan of that temple in the form of basement which has been found in the archaeological excavation. So one such excavation which was conducted at the site of Vidisha in Madhya Pradesh, you must be knowing that why Vidisha is important, right? So Vidisha is a very important early historical site, and you all are aware of Heliodorus pillar inscription in the context of Vidisha in Madhya Pradesh. So at Vidisha, when the archaeological excavation was being conducted, so in that excavation, a remain of temple which is dating back to 2nd century BCE was being found. So on the screen, the way the architecture is being, the superstructure is being made. So this is like you can see how the plan of temple was existing and what kind of a structure, superstructure could have been there on that plan one could erect. So this is an imaginative erection which has been done on the basis of basement which has been found in the archaeological excavation at Vidisha. So we may say that in terms of archaeologically excavated sites, we have evidences of firm evidences of temple architecture from roughly you can say 2nd century BCE onward. However, there are many people who try to try to prove to the fact that temple is not something that began in historical period on the basis of Vidisha excavation remains. But there are people who go on tracing the beginning of temple architecture. There are many scholars, particularly those who are working on Harappan civilization. For example, Jagatpati Joshi, he has written a book on civil engineering in Harappan civilization. So Jagatpati Joshi go on talking about certain structure that we come across in Harappan civilization as remains of earliest remain of temple architecture. But the point is, in the case of Harappan civilization, with surety, none of the structure can be claimed to be as a temple because it lacks whatever the broader notion of temple that we are having or whatever the definitional criteria that we apply to the word temple. So because the inscriptions are not being deciphered from the same region, it is very difficult in the case of Harappan civilization to testify whether they are temple remains or not. So the earliest excavated remains which we are coming across in the historical period, which can be pinpointedly uh, talked about in terms of temple remains, is available to us from 2nd century BCE onward only. And the description of this structure is there on the screen. You can see the remains of this temple are dated back to 3rd century BCE. The shrine consisted of inner ellipses, which is of size 8.10 into 3 meter, separated by 2.5 meter gap from the outer eclipse. The later had the rectangular projection, which is of size 7 into 4.85 meters, and which is to the east of that platform, where the entrance was located. The temple had a big plinth. So this plinth is evident in the archaeological excavation, and its superstructure must have been made of wood, thatched, and mud. So in the early historical period, when we talk of even cave architecture, beginning of cave architecture, and the earliest cave that you witness at Barabar Hills is something is something uh, that gives us the impression of how the masons or architect who was involved in the making of such cave or excavations of such caves in India must have been taking inspiration from wooden architecture. So, in the case of this uh, temple plinth, which has been found at Vidisha going back to the second century, third century BCE, is something which is believed to have thatched and wood made a structure, superstructure on that platform. So, because the entire temple is raised on mud platform, so this is how the earliest remain of temple architecture we began discussing in the architectural history of Indian subcontinent. Before this time period, no concrete example of getting any such structural remain is evident in the case of temple architecture, right? Is anything you would like to ask here on the history of beginning of temple architecture in India? There are some more examples that we come across in Indian subcontinent, right? And like for example, at Nagari in Chittorgarh district of Rajasthan, uh, uh, there is an ancient city called Madhyamika, which is belonging to first century BCE. So there within in the archaeological excavation, another Vishnu shrine was being discovered. So, archaeological excavation of mounds reveal at this site of Madhyamika, which is one of the ancient city, uh, give another impression of a temple which is dedicated to God Vishnu. So this particular site was excavated by Gore in 1983, and the earliest remain of temple architecture is being found here also. So along with these structure, there are certain other remains also that we see is being found, so that it proven to the fact that yes, these structure must have had some religious significance, and it was being used specifically for dedicating prayers to different gods and goddesses. Like for example, one of the Gajalakshmi plaque is also being found. Uh, Two elephant sprinkling water over the head of those goddesses are found at this site. So such iconic representations do allow us to prove to the fact that these structures that we come across in archaeological excavation must have had some religious significance, and this must be some religious architecture. So this is how we see another example at Atranji Khera in the Eta district. We come across a structural remain of temple architecture. So likewise, we have many more examples the way we get at Vidisha from other regions of Indian subcontinent, also particularly Western India and like Western Uttar Pradesh, right? Similarly, the site of Sonk in Mathura, we have the find of a temple remain in the urban complex. So you can take up numerous examples to prove to the fact that how we see the beginning of temple architecture in Indian subcontinent from roughly you can say second century, third century BCE onward. And these remains are not the complete structural remains, but their ground plans are being found in different shapes and size at different sites where in we have so much religious affiliations and associated materials also found together, which leaded to the conclusion that they represent the earliest temple remains in Indian subcontinent. So in the archaeological excavation reports of these sites, we do come across descriptions associated with the existence of earliest temple architecture in Indian subcontinent. So formally, we can begin talking about temple architecture in Indian subcontinent from roughly 3rd century BCE onward. That is something we can say. So these are the plan of some of the excavated remains, which is not required to go into detail of writings, is being widely studied and talked about. Then we come down to a period wherein we see the beginning of structural temple, which is existing even today with us. So basically, when we talk of beginning of temple uh, architecture, which is a structure in the form of a structure existing today with us, is found also at many places. So on the basis of material, basically two different kind of structural remains are being uh, found, right? One which is made of stones and another one which is made of brick. So brick and stone structural remains which is existing even today. You can go and see at these sites the earliest evidences of temple architecture. So we have such temple like, for example, a Vishnu temple found at Tigawa, or Shiva temple found at Bhumra and Ko. Then we have a temple called Parvati temple at Nachna Kuthara. So there is a temple in the complex of Sachi. We have Bodh Gaya in Bihar. So we have numerous sites in Indian subcontinent from where we get earliest evidences of structural temples, which is existing either made of stone or brick, found in situ condition in various parts. So if you will look at the evidences of such earliest temple remains in Indian subcontinent, which is belonging to the time period between 300 to 600 CE, represent a very important stage in the development of temple architecture, which we can say that it is a second major structural phase that we are coming across evident in Indian subcontinent, right? So these temples, some of the temple, I will show you that how simple these temples were. Like, for example, when you look at you see, this is a temple that we come across at Devgarh, called as Dasavatar temple, found here. So the structural remain that you see today in this form, it is being because conjured by Archaeological Survey of India in this form today. So these structures could have sustained for so long. So it is very simple in architecture. You can see there is only a Garbhagriha wherein the main deity is going to be enshrined. It is not much elaborate. So when you look at the Sikhar, is also found the Sikhar, that is upper portion of the temple, the head of the temple, which is called as Sikhar, is found not in uh, entirety, but the partial existence do allow us to imagine that how simple the Sikhara could have been of these temples. So this temple is called as Dasavatar at Devgarh. So they represent one of the earliest uh, uh, structural temple that is existing today in Indian subcontinent. Likewise, you have uh, uh, other that you see the temple at that we come across at Bumra, very simple platform with a garbhagriha on the top and Sikhar, not that elaborate, but even the flat roof is being placed in place of Sikhar. So Sikhar is not present in the structural remain. Even if we can think of like when the originally these structures could have been standing at that point of time, the Sikhar could have been made. But even if we can imagine of such Sikhar, it is not going um, uh, to be much elaborate as we are going to see in the coming years after 6th 7th century CE in Indian subcontinent. So this temple, the down below, you can see this temple is at Nachna Kuthara. Here also we have the same. There is a pavement, and then you have the Garbhagriha directly. You directly enter into the Garbhagriha of temple wherein the main deity is going to be placed. So people could have been offering directly prayer inside the temple. So what we can see is that these temples are very simple in structure, wherein an adhisthana with a Garbhagriha is evident, right? Slowly and steadily, it is these temples that go on elaborating itself over a period of time architecturally. So this is a Lakshmana temple at Sirpur. Uh, you can see slowly and steadily the Sikhar became very important part, wherein a whole lot of decorative elements were being added over a period of time, and we see the entire complex structures started emerging in the time period roughly between 300 CE to 600 CE when we talk of temple architecture, right? Another, this is a Vitargaon, a temple which is made of brick in Madhya Pradesh. So this is one of the earliest example of Vitargaon brick structure. So many a time in competitive examination, it is usually asked uh, that which temple is made of brick. So we have the earliest evidence of brick temple that we get come across in Indian subcontinent is at Bhitargaon. So this Bhitargaon temple, and likewise you will be given numerous options: Nachna Kuthara, Bhitargaon, or Sanchi, where from we come across the earliest evidences of brick temple in India. So we have the earliest brick temple that we come across in Indian subcontinent is from Bhitargaon, and this is the form in which this particular architecture is existing. You can see it its size of the Garbhagriha of this brick temple increased with heavy plinth walls, and very heavy adhisthana portion is evident at this site. Although these temples are no more no more uh, in use, wherein deity are being placed and prayers are not being offered. These are all abandoned temple, and they are being maintained. They are being declared as protected sites and maintained by Archaeological Survey of India. So these are the earliest remains which we come across and see slowly and steadily. This is the gateway steadily you can see the minute carving and elaborations also started taking place over a period of time in these structural remains. Nachna Kuthara gateway is also there. Likewise, it got much more elaborated when we compare it to the preceding examples. So what we can see is that ultimately, slowly and steadily, we see evolution and development of the structural remains of temple architecture as it is evident in the physical form in Indian subcontinent. We can say that largely it proceeds through two phases of development. The earliest phase, when we are coming across earliest evidences of temple architecture in the form of excavated remains, and in the stage we have examples wherein we can go on talking about the slowly and steadily the elaborate structural remains of temple which is existing today with us. All these sites are protected sites, and they are existing. If you will visit to these sites, you can able to even today see these structures because it has been conserved and maintained in the same condition as it was being found and identified. So by the time period we reach to 7th century CE, what we see is that three major styles slowly and steadily likewise crystallized in Indian subcontinent in different parts. So we have, broadly speaking, in the period after 7th century CE, and which sorry, which continued till 13th century CE. So most of the early historic grand temple remains or temple sites that we are coming across in Indian subcontinent mostly belongs to the time period 7th to 13th century CE. So we have broadly three distinctive major styles of temple architecture emerged in Indian subcontinent, which is called as the Nagar, Dravid, and Besar style of temple architecture. When we talk of the geographical distribution of all these three major styles, whether we talk of Nagar, Dravid, and Besar, where from we are getting the evidences of all these three styles. So we need to know the fact that when we talk of Nagar style, which is also called as North Indian style of temple architecture, is found in the region between Himalaya and the Vindhya region, right? So up to central India, we see and the entire northern part of Indian subcontinent. So the land that fall in between Himalaya and Vindhya, that is why I have taken up a broader indicator to this geographical demarcations, wherein we have the evidences of structural remains associated with Nagar style of temple architecture. Likewise, when we move down to the region between two major rivers, that is Krishna and Kaveri, so you have in this region another style of temple architecture that perpetuated over a period of time called as Besar style of temple architecture, and the Dravid style of temple architecture, and the third one, which is Besar style, wherein we see the mixture of both the styles, Nagar as well as Dravid style of temple architecture, is being found in the area between Vindhya and Krishna. So this region had witnessed roughly in the time period around 8th, 9th century CE, the beginning of Besar style of temple architecture. So we have these three uh, major styles of temple architecture that started after 7th century CE, and it is in this time period that we are coming across very much elaborate temple architecture came into existence in Indian subcontinent for the first time, which is existing till date. Many of these temples are even being used in use for offering prayers to different deities. Mostly it was Shiv or Vishnu to whom these temples were dedicated to, and they are still in use in many cases. So when we talk of the kind of why we differentiate in between Nagar style, Dravid style, and Besar style, what are the characteristic feature or difference that we see in the architectural styles of these three uh, uh, kind of temple architecture in Indian subcontinent? So you can able to identify the distinctive feature with which we distinguish Dravid, Nagar, and Besar style of temple architecture. So first of all, the Nagar style, when we look at the Nagar style of temple architecture, so you can what you see what you see is that the basic plan of Nagar style of temple architecture is a squarish in shape and with number of projections in the middle of each sides, and that gives the temple a form which is called as cruciform shape. So the shapes of Nagar style of temple architecture is cruciform, and the temple elevation is marked by conical or convex shikhar, which is also called as temple towers, right? So we have a particular kind of shikhar, which is either conical or you can say convex kind of shikhar found in Nagar style of temple architecture. And within that, we are coming across several layers of carved courses, usually crowned by an amalak. On the top of the shikhar, the top notch is called as amalak, so which is a kind of ring stone placed on the top of Sikhar. So that particular portion is called as Amlak. These two features, the cruciform plan and curvilinear Sikhar, are visible in only North Indian temple architecture started from 6th century CE onward. So this is the basic feature with which we distinguish Nagar style with that of Dravidian style of temple architecture. In case of Dravidian style of temple architecture, what kind of Sikhar we come across? We are coming across a pyramidical Sikhar, not the curvilinear Sikhars like the way we are coming across in Nagar style of temple architecture. Similarly, when we look at temple, there is special provision that we see in the Dravidian style of temple architecture is the find of Gopuram, that is the gateway to the temple, where in the Shaiva temples, usually Nandi are being placed, right? So that Gopuram is not found in the Nagar style of temple architecture. So there are numerous distinctive features that we are witnessing in all the three different styles of temple architecture. Likewise, when we talk of Besar style, which is mixture of both the North Indian temple traditions and South Indian temple traditions. So they are having, like for example, if the basement is being made of Nagar style, then the Shikhar may have the characteristic feature of Dravidian style. So we have the mixture of both the styles formed when we talk of Besar style, and wherever from we are getting the mixture of both the styles, that particular style is referred to as Besara style of temple architecture. So you have Chalukya of Kalyani, Hoysala, who actually patronized the construction of numerous